City Clerk?
Yes, I believe, yes, everyone is here.
Okay, perfect. So we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. And Councilmember James, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance since you have a flag next to you?
Okay, I'm live now.
All right, perfect.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag.
of the United States of America
Okay.
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. Thank you, Councilmember James. City Clerk, would you please take the roll call?
Yes. Councilmember James,
Here.
Councilmember Ward,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Ferguson,
Here.
and Councilmember Ham is absent. The first item on the agenda are the results of the general and special municipal elections held on November 3rd, 2020. And I do have a comment on this.
Okay, let's hear that, please, City Clerk.
Okay.
All right, this comment is from Tyler Bowden. I would like to congratulate the incoming council members for being elected or re-elected to serve our great city. I, for one, will stand behind every member of this council as they take on our city's challenges. With such difficult tasks ahead, many qualities will be necessary to apply. But my hope is that this council will focus on 3 qualities of paramount importance: grace, civility, and mutual respect. Any person holding elected office will inherently have goals, and those goals are a mandate as represented by the voters who elected them. This is our democratic republic in action, but my plea to you is this, and I think I can speak for the roughly 6,000 people who voted for me. Please bring unity to our city council. Please example to all residents what politics can be, rather than reflecting what it is at higher levels of government or the more toxic realms of our community. We have so much opportunity to do good work in the city, but that work cannot get done unless our leaders set the example for the rest of us. I know you can, and I know you will. Thank you for your service and sacrifice to our Spanish village by the sea. See you on the beach trail. Tyler Bowden.
Very nice. Thank you for reading that. Beautiful comments.
And for the staff report, Mayor Pro Tem Ferguson and members of the council, a combined general and special municipal election was held in the city of San Clemente on November 3rd, 2020, in consolidation with the presidential election that was conducted by the County of Orange Register of Voters. The general municipal election included contests for the election of 2 members of the city council, 1 city treasurer, and 1 city clerk, all for full 4-year terms. The general municipal election also included 1 ballot measure, Measure BB, which questioned whether term limits shall be established for members of the city council. The special election was for the purpose of filling a vacancy on the city council for a short 2-year term. The Registrar of Voters has certified the results of the election, which determined that Jean James and Chris Duncan were elected to the council for 4-year terms. Stephen Knoblock was elected to the council for a 2-year term. Mark A. Taylor was elected city treasurer for a 4-year term. And myself, Joanne Baade, was elected city clerk for a 4-year term. Additionally, the majority of voters who voted on Measure BB voted in favor of term limits. Consequently, that ordinance will become a valid and binding ordinance of the city and shall take effect as provided by law. State law requires that term limit ordinances apply prospectively. Consequently, the 2 persons elected to 4-year terms on the council at the November 3rd election will be the first council members captured in the term limit ordinance upon being inducted into office. At this time, I recommend that council adopt the resolution to recite the fact of the election with the inclusion of the modified election certification that was provided to council yesterday. That concludes my report, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Mayor Pro Tem, I have a motion.
Please, unless there's any questions? Councilmember Ward? None? Okay, please proceed. Councilmember James?
I move to adopt resolution number 20-65 entitled "A Resolution of the City Council of the City of San Clemente, California, reciting the fact of the general and special municipal elections held in the city on November the 3rd, 2020, declaring the results and such matters as provided by law.
Okay, do we have a second?
I will second that with the question to the city clerk if that is enough to cover that modification that we got.
Let's just note for the record that that does include the modified certification.
Okay,
That's fine.
Councilmember James nodding, so I will second that motion.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you. And city clerk, please take roll call.
Okay. Councilmember James,
Aye.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ferguson.
Aye.
That motion carries 3-0. And next is the oath of allegiance for the newly elected city clerk, city treasurer, and council members. The swearing-in ceremony was pre-recorded yesterday with the understanding that their terms of office do not commence until council adopted the resolution reciting the fact of the election, which you just did. So at this time, I will ask our IT people to show the administration of the oaths of allegiance.
All right, Joanne, congratulations on your election, and
Thank
I'd like
you.
to swear you in. Go ahead and raise your right hand. Repeat
Thank
after
you.
me. I, Joanne Baade,
I, Joanne Baade,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. And I look so forward to continuing to serve the people of San Clemente. Thank you. I'd like to congratulate you, City Treasurer-elect. And at this time, I would ask that you raise your right hand and take the oath of office.
Okay.
I state your name,
I, Mark Taylor,
do solemnly swear or
Yes.
affirm
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I would
support and defend
support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully well and faithfully discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations, City Treasurer Taylor.
Thank
And it's
you.
my pleasure to present you with this certificate of election.
Thank you. Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you. Congratulations, Councilmember-elect Duncan, on your election. At this time, I would ask that you raise your right hand and take the oath of office.
Thank you, Joanne.
I state your name.
I, Chris Duncan,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations, and it's my very sincere privilege to present you with this certificate of election.
Thank you very much, Joanne. Very honored to be part of this incredible council and looking forward to working to getting things done for this great city.
Thank you. Councilmember-elect James, I'd like to congratulate you on your election. And at this time, I would ask that you raise your right hand and take the oath of office. I state your name,
Gene Walker James,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
I'll bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California.
that I take this obligation freely
I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion.
and that I will well and faithfully
I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations, Councilmember James. Certificate of election.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Am I supposed to say something now?
You may.
The last time I did that, I was 17 years old and I found myself at Fort Ord, California getting yelled at.
Well, no difference.
No difference.
Wait for the yelling.
You know, I appreciate so many friends that are here that believed in me, that got behind my campaign, advised me when I was going off the rails, congratulated me when I was doing well during the campaign. You know, you all know who you are. You supported me financially. You supported me emotionally. My wife, I can't say enough. And there's no doubt we've been a divisive council for quite some time. There's no doubt that we have to take the drama out of council and look at working on issues that impact San Clemente. Not for 1 minute should we think that this COVID crisis is beyond us or we see the light at the end of the tunnel. It will be a year. My physician who works in the pharmaceutical industry will tell you this. It will be a year before we all are vaccinated. And some people will choose not to be vaccinated. That's their business. But the financial impact will linger. And we've got to be able to look at the city budget. We've got to look at the $45 million in unfunded liabilities that we have to work down. And we just have a lot of things going on, and we're going to have to work together as a council. We don't have to be friends. We don't have to be buddies. but we do have to be colleagues, and we do have to work in the interest of the city. So with that, I thank each and every one of you for being here. Joanne, thank you very much.
Okay. Councilmember-elect Knoblock, I'd like to congratulate you on your election.
Thank you.
And at this time, I would ask you to raise your right hand and take the oath. I state your name.
I, Stephen Knoblock,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic.
foreign and domestic,
That I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California,
That I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion. And that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations, Councilmember Knoblock.
Thank you.
And this is your certificate of election.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I want to thank my wife for allowing me to run for office. And let me just say, government, as many of you know, is ordained by God. And those that are entrusted with its service have a high standard of care, of transparency, honesty, and integrity. And I can pledge to you that's my goal in life. That'll be my goal as a city councilman. Thank you, friends and neighbors, for supporting me, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the election of mayor and mayor pro tem. I do have a speaker card on this one.
Okay, please, let's hear that, City Clerk. Thank you.
Okay, this is from Donna the Dream, and she writes, the newly elected mayor should be able to work effectively with city staff, city leadership, and other council members to do the work for San Clemente. With that stated, please nominate Kathy Ward for mayor and Jean James for mayor pro tem. My expectation is that Laura Ferguson will work more effectively with city staff, leadership, and city council, representing the San Clemente people in a more collaborative and less contentious way as a councilwoman. I would like to see city council working together with professionalism, less conflict, more unified, and demonstrating leadership in navigating the current public health crisis with COVID-19, supporting local business, and coming to sensible and compassionate solutions for the homeless living in San Clemente. Nominate and vote for Kathy Ward, Jean James for council mayor, and mayor pro tem.
Okay, thank you, City Clerk.
So at this time, I will conduct the election for mayor, and then after the mayor is elected, then the new mayor will conduct the election for mayor pro tem.
Okay, thank you, City Clerk. I'd like to nominate Steve Knoblock to be mayor. Do we have a second?
Is there a second to the nomination?
Second.
Okay, so that was by Mayor Pro Tem Ferguson, seconded by Knoblock. Okay. Are there any?
City Clerk,
Yes.
Clerk, I will nominate Kathy Ward to be mayor.
Is there a second to the nomination?
I will second that.
Okay. Are there any other nominations?
City Clerk,
Yes.
I'd like to nominate Jean James for mayor.
Is there a second to the nomination? If there's no second, that nomination will die. Okay, I don't hear a second. Are there any other nominations?
I'll move the nominations be closed.
Second?
Okay. Okay, so let me take the vote on that. Councilmember, let's see, James?
Ward.
Oh, this is just to close the nomination.
Oh, second. Okay. Aye. Sorry.
Okay. Councilmember Ward?
Aye.
Councilmember Duncan?
Aye.
Councilmember Knoblock?
Aye.
And Councilmember Ferguson?
Aye.
Okay, so nominations are closed. So the two council members that have been nominated are council members Knoblock and Ward. So I will ask for a straw poll to determine the number of support for each. So would those council members who support the election of council member Knoblock to the office of mayor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, I hear council members Ferguson and Knoblock. And now for the nomination of Councilmember Ward to the office of mayor. Please signify if you support Councilmember Ward by saying aye.
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 Okay, I heard them all together, so let me just do a roll. I think I heard Councilmember James
Aye.
and Councilmember Duncan.
Aye.
You voted for Councilmember Ward?
Yes.
And Councilmember Ward?
Aye.
Okay. That's 3, so we have majority support for Councilmember Ward to become mayor. So can we have a motion to appoint Councilmember Ward to the office of mayor?
I will move the appointment of Councilmember Ward as mayor.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, let me just take the roll then. Councilmember James.
Aye.
Councilmember Knoblock.
Aye.
Councilmember Duncan.
Aye.
Councilmember Ferguson.
No.
And Councilmember Ward.
Aye.
And that carries 4-1 with Councilmember Ferguson dissenting. Congratulations, Mayor Ward. Turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for my colleagues for voting for me. I promise to try to run an efficient meeting and represent the people, and that we all get our ideas out. And I do want to work in a more collaborative fashion this year. I will now take up nominations for the Mayor Pro Tem.
I'd like to nominate Steve Knoblock, Councilmember Knoblock, to be Mayor Pro Tem.
I would like to nominate Councilmember James. Do I have a second?
I didn't hear a second. Let's back up just a second. I'm sorry. I heard Councilmember Ferguson nominated Councilmember Knoblock. Is there a second to that nomination? I think I saw Councilmember Knoblock mouth, "Oh, you're on mute."
Yeah, the mic's off.
I'll second that.
Did I see a yes? You're seconding?
Yes.
Okay.
And so we have 2 motions, and is there a second to the motion that I made for Councilmember James?
I'll second that.
So I'll take a vote first for Councilmember Knoblock to be Mayor Pro Tem. And I guess I have to turn it over to Joanne for a vote. Or we're taking a straw vote. Is that correct, Joanne?
Yes, this is the straw vote. So if you could signify if you support Councilmember Knoblock for the office of Mayor Pro Tem. Feel free to jump in. Is there any? Can you hear me? This is the straw poll. If you wish to support Councilmember Knoblock for the office of Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
Okay.
Aye.
Yes.
Okay, so I see Councilmember Ferguson and Knoblock. Are there any others? Okay, so there's 2 in support for Councilmember Knoblock. And now straw poll to support Councilmember James for the office of Mayor Pro Tem. If you could signify if you support that.
Aye.
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 Okay, I think I saw 3. Councilmember Ward, Councilmember Duncan, and Councilmember James. Is that correct? Okay, there's majority support for Councilmember James. So if you'd like to make a motion to close nominations and appoint Councilmember James to the office of Mayor Pro Tem.
I make a motion to close the, I'll second that motion and make a motion that Councilmember James be appointed Mayor Pro Tem.
Do I hear a vote and a
And
second?
who made that motion?
James.
Oh, okay. So motion by James, seconded by Councilmember Knoblock. And it's close nominations and appoint Councilmember Knoblock to the office of Mayor Pro Tem.
Joanne, you have it backwards. Councilmember James.
What did I say? Knoblock? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, to appoint. Okay. All right, so vote Councilmember Knoblock. How do you vote on that?
Oh, yes, I made the motion to,
Yes.
are you looking for a motion now?
Just for the record, we need to get it as to how you're voting.
I seconded the motion to close nominations, and I believe I made the motion to appoint Councilmember James as Pro Tem.
Okay. Councilmember Ferguson?
No.
Okay. Councilmember James?
Aye.
Councilmember Duncan?
Aye.
Councilmember Ward?
Aye.
Okay. Congratulations, Councilmember James.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for everyone's confidence in me.
So I see the next item is a toll road update.
Yes, sometimes, sometimes council members, especially new, would like to make comments. Is there anything before we move on?
Yes.
I rush it.
I would like to say something since the audio was so troubled there for our swearing in, if that's okay. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
Okay. Just like to say, really honored to represent San Clemente, the best beach town around, at least I think. I'd like to thank the residents for putting me here. My wife, Haley, who's been there supporting me since the beginning. My 3 little kids, Brooklyn, Olivia, and Rico, and the many supporters that I had that helped me with my campaign. Our goal has always been to restore civility, professionalism, and decency to our public discourse here in town. These are divisive times, but I really believe we may have our differences, but we all want the same thing. It's a city that's beautiful, prosperous, and safe for our residents. Council sets the tone and direction for how this can be accomplished. I don't have an agenda, and I'm not beholden to any kind of special interests. I'm here to serve you. There will be times when you all may disagree with me and other council members may disagree with me, but I promise to all of you I'll put the time and effort in to make the very best decisions for the city, driven by data and evidence. And that means respecting and trusting our incredible, hardworking, and committed staff at the city, while also holding them accountable to the highest standards of excellence. We're all responsible for playing our part, though. Even if that means sometimes taking steps that are not in our own best immediate interests. And the future is bright for San Clemente. I really believe that. But it requires all of us to pull together to make it happen. And that starts tonight. Thank you.
So Councilmember James or Councilmember Knoblock, would you like to go next?
I'll defer to Councilmember Knoblock.
Well, my comments when I was sworn in was just that government is ordained by God. It's a high duty and a high calling. It's one that's significant in the community, one that requires high levels of integrity, transparency, honesty. As I said earlier, that's my goal in life, and that'll be my goal on this council. And I'm pleased that my wife, Twyla, allowed me to run, and I appreciate the support that I received to get here. Thank you all, and God bless.
And the only thing I have to say is I thank all my supporters. It was a interesting campaign. It was the third campaign I ran within 2 years. So I think my wife is convinced that September through October, November is nothing but campaigning, but I won't have to do that in 2021. I'm looking forward to serving with this council. I think we can come together. Steve Knoblock's comments a moment ago were wonderful. Councilmember Duncan's comments were exceptional and motivating, and I think we all should live up to those words. And I look forward to the leadership of Mayor Ward. That's the first time someone called you that, by the way. And so with all that, I look forward to the year. And finally, I want to thank my wife as well, because without her, I could not have done this. Thank you.
Wise men always thank their wives. The next item is a toll road update. And I am going to give a little bit of an update on what is currently happening. It's under the toll road because I think people will pay more attention, but it does not have to only do with the toll road. I wanted to announce that the Planning Commission is taking up an amendment to our general plan for the Los Patrones Parkway extension. The people should remember that we had several town halls on this where the city argued that a toll road was not needed to go through our city, and it would be so damaging to our city, but that an arterial solution could provide the regional circulation that our region needs. And at this time, the Rancho Mission Viejo development has asked for an amendment to the master plan of arterial highways to add Los Patrones Parkway extension to that master plan of highways. This was shown in our traffic study that the previous council did, that a toll road was not needed, and it's always been the will of the council that we would look at arterial solutions. And what is being proposed now is a normal planning process that any city or developer would go through to ask for an arterial highway. It's going to take a couple years to go through the process before it is added, but it is going to our Planning Commission very soon. And that's what I wanted the public to know, is that the Planning Commission is going to take this up before it comes to the City Council. If residents have concerns, or they want to know more about it, or they support this arterial in lieu of the toll road, please write to the Planning Commission for comments to this. It's very necessary that, we always want to hear from the residents. I personally think that the extension and this arterial is a good choice for circulation. I think it definitely hinders and stops any question of a toll road ever being needed or being able to go through our city. And I think it's important for the residents to know that. There's a couple things that I wanted to talk about that reminded me of this. We held a hike that was led by our staff when we were looking at where the toll road might go. And I don't know if it's something that we can look at now with the regulations in our health crisis. It would be outside, but I'm not sure if we could do this or not. It wouldn't be a hike because we would be on we would be on La Pata, looking at whereabouts that the toll road would be. So I'd like staff, the interim city manager, to consider this, whether we could do it. I think before it comes back to the council, it would be nice to have that, if it's at all feasible to do. It was very successful when we did it before, and I think residents really appreciate getting a bird's eye view of what the road, where it would be. And I think this arterial is no different. If we can't do it, we really have to have the map as much as we can, or as much information as we can, to the public so that they can see for themselves where this might go, and so they can have their concerns read. The second thing that I wanted is to remind staff that, I don't know, I think it was like over a year ago that the City Council directed staff to remove any mention of the 241 toll road in our general plan. Any mention of it, anything that it's in a map, and I don't know how that's going. So I'd like staff to look at that. I think it would be a good time that as this general plan amendment goes through our system, it would also be a good time to remove and get that out of our general plan. I think we did it in response to the green alignment being settled, and so that was the council at the time, we had directed that to happen. So I'd just like to remind you of that, and that I think this is a good time to bring that forward while we're doing the zoning for the MPAW, or I'm sorry, the general plan amendment for Los Patronos Parkway extension. I'm not hearing anything from staff.
I was on mute. I apologize. So yes, first answer with regards to the hiking tour, I think it's a fantastic idea. I think it gives a great perspective, and that would be something that we can definitely coordinate with Rancho Mission Viejo as part of that process. I think that would be something that they would be open to, and potentially also including Supervisor Bartlett's office on that as well, to be able to provide updates and take questions from the public. So I think with regards to that, Mayor Ward, that's something that we can easily facilitate over the coming weeks.
Okay, so that is my toll road update. Just letting the public know that this is going through a process, and if they have concerns or want to support an arterial instead of the toll road through our city, that they can write to the Planning Commission. And that's the end of my update.
I have a question, Councilmember Ward. Since you're our toll road rep, why then, since we do have the arterial road, Los Patronos Parkway extension, why is there a need for us to continue the litigation, number one? And number two, why is there a need for us to continue with these consultants, which the council majority had adopted at the last regular meeting?
I don't think that we have a Los Patronos Parkway extension yet. It's just going through the process. And so we don't have that yet. And so I don't think it's smart to take our foot off the pedal of trying to get a solution. This is just the start of an extension. It still has to go through the public. It has to go through the county planning commission. So that would be my comment. I don't think we have it yet. We need to have that. I certainly do think that this will eliminate a lot of our need to sue TCA to stop if they are no longer, we feel, able to do an extension. So I think that right now we're pursuing that, and until we have it and it's settled, there's no stopping yet. So
okay.
I know your concerns, and I would agree with them, and we'll look at them at the time. But I think that us considering the extension at this point is a good start to that and your concerns.
And how about the last meeting, the last regular meeting, you had indicated as our toll road rep that we don't want to be calling it Alternative 22 because it represents one of the TCA's potential alignments, right? So how are you considering going about having, say, that changed? Like at the county level, what are they calling it, for instance?
I believe it is being asked for by the Rancho Mission Viejo developer, and they are calling it an extension to Los Patronos Parkway.
Okay, LPPE.
We're going to refer to it.
Okay, that sounds good. So we can continue to do that or start doing that in all of our publications, communications. Perfect. Lastly, this question's for Mr. Sund. Mr. Sund, were you able to get the most latest correspondence and news articles relating to the progress made relating the toll road and stopping the toll road and so forth. Because as I mentioned at the last regular meeting, the last correspondence we had on there was from April 2017. And I know we recently, the council, unanimously had supported sending a letter to OC Public Works, and that's still not up there. Would you be updating that with news articles and correspondence so the community's brought up to speed and there's no more surprises when things go out?
Absolutely, Councilmember Ferguson. Staff are working on a major overhaul of that web page and web page relative to the TCA and the toll road initiatives. And we're hoping in the next couple of weeks we'll be complete with that and all of that information. It'll have a complete new look to it. It will have a notification system for individuals who want to be updated as new pieces of information are posted on there. The holidays have made it a little bit tricky in terms of the staff resources to be able to completely complete that, but I anticipate that'll be completed by the middle of December.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Ward. Mayor Ward.
Thank you.
Mayor Ward, I have a couple of comments to make.
Yes, thank you.
If the TCA didn't remain a clear and present danger to our community, I'd be more than happy to dispense with the consultants, lobbyists, etc., and legal costs. However, if they wanted to make peace with us, why would they have opposed Senator Bates's bill, SB 1373, that only protected our open space? It was the only thing that that bill did. Why did they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars fighting that bill? And until I get a good answer on that, and I will be in favor of continuing to protect the city of San Clemente from the TCA. I'll give a bit of an update. CEO Samuel Johnson of the TCA called me the other day and asked that we ratchet down the rhetoric with the TCA. I agreed to do so, but it's going to be a trust and verify thing. I want, they need to make movements to make us feel comfortable, and before we'll ever drop the loss, before we'll ever drop that litigation. It's mind-boggling that they continue to keep us in litigation on this issue. I think first and foremost, this council needs to protect the citizens of this city. Thank you.
So I would agree with those comments, and even the council needs to remember that we proposed an amendment to the legislation that allowed TCA to continue collecting development impact fees, and they still refused. So I would agree with Councilmember James that we just do not understand that, and as soon as they are willing to live up to what they've said that they're doing, we can't stop. And the council, three councils ago, we promised that we would put an end to this question of a toll road once and for all, and we wouldn't kick it down the road 10 years, another decade, and leave it for another council to have to figure out, and the residents to be put in this position again of being threatened. So I think this is a good time, and it's a good year to solve this question of the toll road, and it just needs to stop. So I would agree with that. And does anyone else have any comments they would like to make on the toll road? Mr. Knoblock.
Yes, since this isn't a public hearing on the toll road, but just a report, I wanted to ask, the concern about the Los Patrones extension being a Trojan horse to continue the toll road south, I'm curious why we would be allowing, while we're amending our general plan, to allow the Los Patrones extension in the 700 or 800 feet that it actually enters into San Clemente. It's like putting wheels on that Trojan horse that we've heard about. So if we really want to put a wooden stake through this, wouldn't we not amend our general plan and put a wall at the city and just say you're not coming here? I know that we have some benefits of potentially controlling the road if we interact, and I see the value there. I'm just wondering if we're being strong enough in our opposition.
I think that the council is concerned about that, but what we're doing and what we're going to be considering in the future is not, it won't be a Trojan horse. This is a normal county planning process that we're going through right now. It's unfortunate that TCA put it in their, in March to 2020, they put it in as number 22 to their other 21 suggestions of how to ram in a toll road somewhere. But that's unfortunate, and I think that's caused confusion. If it wasn't for that and them referring to it as something that an alternative that they were going to look at, we would just be talking about a general planning process. And we always do this. This is in our sphere of influence, and we're going to have a say in how this road is done, and that it conforms with our master or our complete streets element and the elements of our general plan. But it will require a general plan amendment for us. And so I think by doing that, like you said, we will have a say. So, you know, we'll be talking about that in the future, but I don't buy that it's a Trojan horse. I think we'll do everything that we can, and I'm trusting that you will also, to make sure that that is not the case.
That's my goal. I've heard it referred to by a number of people, including on this council, that this whole thing is a Trojan horse and is a potential for danger. So that's why I was saying, you know, you set the horse on fire, you don't bring it into the gate. So that's why I made my comment.
Okay, thank you. So
I have one comment,
Mayor.
Okay. Is there an update on the request by our local Congress people that Caltrans investigate the TCA, and are our consultants working on that in addition to other toll road projects?
Councilmember Duncan, I can address that. Yes, the answer is yes. So we received a letter from Levin's office requesting Caltrans to look at the TCA and conduct an audit via the Attorney General's office. And our consultants are keeping tabs on that and working through that. And it's something that I think now that the new legislative season is being established for 2021, that will be a priority that we look at going forward in the next legislative calendar year.
Thank you. I mean, if nothing else, it may provide some leverage in the other discussions we're having on this issue. So,
agree.
Okay, so Madam Clerk, I see that B, the CityNet update and a homeless update, has been moved to December 15th, and that item C, the monthly financial report, has also been moved to December.
Yes. So the next item is oral communications, and we do have some comments if you'd like to hear them. Okay. Laura, do you want to start? Okay.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, took a second to get unmuted there. First comment is anonymous and regarding e-bikes on pedestrian walkways. This comment is from a concerned citizen expressing the extreme danger to pedestrians while walking on sidewalks, beach trails, etc. While I support the use of e-bikes, these bike riders should be limited to street bike lanes and bike trails. Frequently, while walking on the city sidewalks, e.g. Community Los Mares Linear Park, speeding e-bike riders pass, especially from the rear, almost crashing into pedestrians. Many of these speeding riders on the sidewalks are very rude to pedestrians, and while talking on their cell phones, texting, and often with no hands on the handlebars. Please act quickly before there is a serious personal injury causing the city great liability in the millions of dollars. Thank you for your prompt attention to this very dangerous issue. Next comment is from Ken Salter. I request that the City Council make it a priority to silence the train horns at crossings, which began, again, last week after the expiration of the 5-year waiver. I spoke this morning with the Federal Railroad Aviation Agency Inspector, Jacob Peterson, and he advised me of the deficiencies which must be corrected to reestablish quiet zones. The most challenging item is that some of the enunciators do not achieve the required 80 dBA sound pressure level at a distance of 20 feet as is promised in the waiver. According to Mr. Peterson, the enunciators are difficult to maintain because their design uses custom parts, the speaker enclosures, and the environment has damaged the audio system. Mr. Peterson recommends replacing the enunciators with standard commercial off-the-shelf wayside horns on posts. However, the standard wayside horns emit 92 dBA at 100 feet. This is unacceptably loud. My recommendation is to, 1, examine the contract for the procurement of the enunciator system to see if the manufacturer is obligated to correct these problems under warranty, and 2, simultaneously contact manufacturers of wayside horns and ask them whether they can be muted to 80 dBA. Furthermore, I ask Council to accelerate this process as much as possible. Mr. Peterson said it would take about a year to file and approve a new waiver request. He attributed the current situation partly to communication problems that occurred in March, April due to the frenzy caused by COVID. I asked him whether the process could be streamlined, eliminating the need to reapply for a waiver based on other government examples of COVID red tape easing. He said he would contact his superiors on that. I urge City Council to follow up on this. Lastly, as a stakeholder who lives less than 600 feet from the Calafia crossing, I request to be notified of any significant developments and invited to comment. As a registered professional engineer in the state of California and over 30 years of experience in safety systems for theme parks, primarily Disney and Universal, I believe I can be a helpful community resource. Next comment is from Heather Gillette. By now, everyone must be aware that we lost quiet zone designation on November 25th because the crossings did not meet Federal Rail Authority standards during a recent inspection. Please tell us why, how can it be corrected, and how soon? The city and its residents worked very hard from 2008 to 2016 to get quiet zone approval. Sadly, we're back to stressful noise levels and sleepless nights. Please give this matter your most urgent attention. Thank you. Next comment is from Scott Stewart. Handicap parking blocked or unusable at business to put up outdoor seating. COVID-19 does not supersede the Americans with Disabilities Act or DMV code. Handicap parking must remain open.
Next comment is from Chris Aitken. On behalf of the San Clemente Downtown Business Association, I wanted to congratulate our new City Council members. My name is Chris Aitken, and I am the present chair of the San Clemente Downtown Business Association. I wanted to give you a brief overview of our organization focused on what has been accomplished in our partnership with the city in 2020. The SCDBA has been very active helping businesses during the pandemic. The SCDBA has set forth various sector think tanks to promote communication among its members and also to learn the needs of its businesses. We have hosted webinars, sent out weekly e-newsletters, and been an information resource to the downtown during this difficult time. The SCDBA has also been a leader in the development of new programs, such as Open San Clemente, the open air dining concept, and the city's Mask Up campaign. We have worked hand in hand with Jonathan Lightfoot, the Economic Development Director of the City of San Clemente, who has been a valued partner. These concepts, especially the open air dining program, have been extremely well received by San Clemente residents, and our businesses have appreciated the extension of such programs to now include June 2021. There is concern from our sectors downtown in this winter season, which is typically the slowest time, but we remain appreciative of the city's partnership to support small businesses downtown and throughout San Clemente. Congratulations again to our new council members, and a heartfelt thank you to our City Council for your support of our organization. If you have any questions or would like to learn more about us, please feel free to reach out to me. Next comment is from Wally Roberts, and he says, I request that the city take the necessary action to reinstate the Beach Railroad Quiet Zone. Next communication is from Brad Malamud, and he writes, congratulations to my friends, Mr. James, Knoblock, and Duncan. I wish you great success. Regarding last week's censure, Council violated the Brown Act, due process, and Council policy. The chair refused to allow witnesses. The city paid an attorney to help the majority censure Ms. Ferguson and then refused to provide Ms. Ferguson an attorney. San Clemente does not have a censure law or an ethics policy. Thus, there was no basis to censure anyone. The concept of censure was hatched in April 2019. The special meeting was not properly noticed. The hearing was illegal. Speech by Ms. Ferguson is protected by the First Amendment. The documents were not privileged. Council abdicated its duty to make findings of fact and law and instead allowed Scott Smith, the unelected 5th council member, to act as judge, jury, and executioner. I sent council a 67-page letter detailing the violations and requesting the council revoke and dismiss the censure, and in the alternative, under Policy 102-2, return the modified resolution for a vote at a future council meeting. At a minimum, another vote is required. Respectfully, I ask the new council members to address the violations and either reverse the censure or bring the resolution back for a vote. Signed, Brad Malamuth, San Clemente business owner and attorney for Council Member Ferguson.
Next comment is from Cord Bauer. Dear City Council and staff, 2020 has been such a horrible year. I hope this council uses today as a new start for 2021 with new members and an optimistic view for the future. One issue that I hope will continue from 2020 is the discussion of the fiscal health of the city. Specifically, I hope you treat your council positions as a watchdog for the taxpayers' pockets. It's important now more than ever. This year, Councilmember James had strong support from Councilmember Ferguson for a zero-based budget review of all of the departments of the city. While support was split 2-2, I hope going forward that Councilmember Ward will now see that this budget review is needed. Please, can anyone tell me who, besides the council members, is watching our finances and is also either elected to their position or a volunteer of the city? If the answer is no one, then I hope that a zero-based budget review would happen on a regular basis. I have one other budget-related point. Jean James somehow caught a consent calendar item regarding staff raises. Again, I have the same question. Is anyone besides the council looking out for the taxpayers when it comes to budget negotiations? Is there ever a time when employees who receive a state pension are on both sides of the bargaining table? I'm not sure if the current employee contract has been finalized, but it only makes sense that one side of the table is fully represented by taxpayer advocates or our elected officials. Thank you for your consideration. I look forward to the new council and hope to see you all working together for the betterment of our town. Cord Bauer.
Next communication is from Camille Wyatt. Good evening, members of the City Council. As we usher in and seat new members of the City Council tonight, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Mayor Pro Tem Ferguson for her distinguished service as our city's mayor. Her dedication to the residents of San Clemente has been incredible. She has stayed true to her word and continually strove for transparency at every opportunity. It is refreshing to know that we, the many who live in our beautiful city, have someone on council who has our back and is mindful of how our tax dollars are spent. Although some might not care for her style, I applaud Ms. Ferguson for staying true to her word and beliefs. For it is not what we do when others are watching, but what we do when they are not. That is the epitome of integrity. Honesty and integrity still matter in this world, these days more than ever. I would also like to welcome Steve Knoblock and Chris Duncan to the council. Remember, you represent all of San Clemente. I wish you the best of luck during your term and look forward to what the new council in its entirety can achieve. These are perilous times, so make wise decisions. Do what is best, even if it requires making the hard and unpopular decisions. Be brave and be willing to think outside the box for the betterment of our Spanish village by the sea. Thank you.
I do have one final comment from Ryan Bork. Council, congratulations to Chris Duncan, Steve Knoblock, and Jean James. Further congrats to Mayor Ward and Mayor Pro Tem James. The voters have spoken as to the direction of council and where the city should go in the future. It is my sincerest hope that we can all come together as a community. I heed warning to council about the vocal few. There are several city residents that make a lot of noise on social media and go out of their way to let you know how they feel. And if you don't feel the same way, we'll go on the attack. I guess that you not focus on what is said on social media, as that only represents a handful of people in relation to the over 60,000 residents of San Clemente. Know that you have the power of the vote of the people at large behind you. Be independent thinkers and work together. Don't let a few bad apples ruin your experience in council. You 5 council members hold the keys to making San Clemente a better city for all of us. May God show his favor to San Clemente. Ryan Bork, CPA. And that is all I have for public comments.
The next item on the agenda is a request to waive reading in full of all resolutions and ordinances.
Someone would like to make a motion?
Also moved.
Second? Is there a second? Councilmember James, you're on mute.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, Councilmember Duncan,
Aye.
Councilmember James,
Aye.
Councilmember Ferguson,
Aye.
Councilmember Knoblock,
Aye.
and Mayor Ward.
Aye.
Carries 5-0. Next item. Closed session report, City Attorney.
Actually, Madam Clerk, under number 4, consideration of agendizing items requiring immediate action.
Yes.
I do have one, and I'm only bringing it up because of time. This has to do with the RENA numbers from SCAG that control our housing elements. There's been a new development just this week that cities are asking for a closed session, convene a special closed session of the meeting of the SCAG Regional Council to discuss recommendations by their RENA Litigation Committee. Their litigation committee is made up of one of the members who represents San Clemente is Peggy Hung, and she is from Yorba Linda. She is a federal attorney, and she has brought up the issues of the RENA numbers that SCAG adopted these numbers that are too high. They are 5 times greater than our last session, and all cities are going to have trouble meeting these, but there's been a question of how these numbers came about. They're actually thinking that SCAG approved the RENA numbers for the entire state and put them for the 5 or 6 counties that they represent, from LA to Ventura to San Bernardino. So there is a letter that's been requested, and that's what I'm coming to council for, and I think it needs to go out because this meeting needs to happen this month. And all it is a letter to President Richardson, who is president of Southern California Association of Governments, to request that he hold this closed session meeting as recommended by their litigation committee for RENA numbers. As you know, our housing element must be certified by October 2021. And so far, SCAG, a lot of cities have said that they made a mistake in these numbers, but so far SCAG is not willing to go back and change it. They're asking each city to come up with a trying to think of the word.
Mayor Ward, while you're thinking of the word, could you remind us what RENA is, what the RENA numbers are? I'm not familiar.
Regional housing numbers for
the various
affordable housing.
economic categories of income levels.
Yes, and so what has happened is SCAG came out, they just did their new plan, and they came out with numbers that are 5 times greater than last year. And it is their own committee, their litigation committee on this, has raised questions of how they came about these numbers, and they think they're incorrect. So instead of...
Are you asking for closed? Sorry for interrupting. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Are you asking for a closed session today or at the next meeting?
No. I'm asking for a letter. There's Mission Viejo has asked for this letter to be distributed. I couldn't give it to council ahead of time, and all it is calling for the SCAG president to do what the litigation committee has asked for and to hold a closed session there. I can distribute this to the council, but I would like to know if we could have a vote that the mayor could execute this. All it is following what the litigation committee asked for. I can read it, but it pretty much says what I just said.
Excuse me, Mayor Ward, if I may. For the new members, they may want to know that our council, the former council, had signed on to a letter with all Orange County mayors to get to this point because the numbers were so extreme in terms of what we needed to add to our community for the lower income, moderate, so forth. So we did already sign on to a mayor's letter previously, and then what Mayor Ward's asking for is this next step for the closed session litigation. Is that correct, Mayor Ward, from what you're saying?
It's a new letter asking the president of SCAG to consider what the SCAG Arena Litigation Committee asked for, which was a closed session, so that they can, at that level, get these changed and not make us do a challenge. Right now, they're making cities challenge their numbers. Scott, I see your hand up.
I was just going to ask if you set this up correctly. To add this to the agenda, you need a 4/5 vote of the council based on a finding that it came to your attention following the posting of this agenda, which you indicated that it did, and that it can't wait till your meeting of the 15th, which I think you also explained. So what I'd suggest, thank you for laying it out. Before you take more comments, and certainly before you vote, I'd like you to vote by 4/5 to put this on your agenda, and then you can go from there.
Thank you so much for that procedural advice. I agree this has to go on. I believe it's new business. And so I would ask the council to please, if I have a second, to put this on new business, because I believe it cannot wait. They need to have the city's support in order to have this meeting in December.
I'll second that.
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Ferguson. So I have a second, a motion and a second.
Okay, Councilmember Duncan.
Aye.
Councilmember Ferguson.
Aye.
Councilmember James.
Aye.
Councilmember Knoblock.
Aye.
And Mayor Ward.
Aye. Thank you very much, Scott.
That carries 5-0. Okay. Closed session report. There was no closed session so far.
Closed session, I should say, Joanne, that I don't contemplate that any action will be taken tonight in closed session, so just so the public knows, they don't need to wait, because we can guarantee that there won't be a report from tonight.
Okay. All right. Warrant register, the next item under new business. Is there a motion to approve the warrant register and payroll register? Yes.
Motion to approve the warrant register?
Under discussion. Under
Okay, I'll
discussion of the
second
motion,
that,
Mayor Ward.
and then we'll have a discussion. Go ahead, Councilmember Knobloch.
My question is this the appropriate time to bring up under new business? Is this the appropriate time to bring up matters that would otherwise be brought up under 11D with council members for council consideration? Would this be the right time, or shall I, under reports, is that when you normally ask council members if they have ideas or suggestions on items to be agendized?
Yes, it would come under, for future agendized, it would come under council comments.
Okay, then I'll hold off on my comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. So, Madam Clerk, will you take a vote?
Yes, and just for clarification, that was to approve the warrant register. Does it also include the payroll register?
Payroll register, warrant, and payroll register.
Okay, got it. Okay. All right. Councilmember Duncan.
Aye.
Councilmember James.
Aye.
Councilmember Ferguson.
Aye.
Councilmember Knoblock. Councilmember Knoblock, do you support? You're on mute.
Oh, I apologize. Yes, that's aye.
Okay. And Mayor Ward.
Aye.
That carries 5-0. So the item under that was added to the agenda is the possibility of submitting a letter to the President of the Southern California Association of Governments to request a closed session to address RENA numbers.
Okay, so I thank you. I asked for this to be added. Would the council like me to quickly just read the letter to them? Do they have any concerns?
Is it long?
No, I could read it. let me read it real quick. It is to President Richardson of SCAG. We have been monitoring the information and discussions that have been raised by jurisdictions on whether the State Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, followed housing law in issuing a housing need of 1.34 million units to the SCAG region. This was an issue that was raised by SCAG staff in its own September 18th, 2019 objection letter to HCD, and a reason why SCAG initially established and convened meetings of a SCAG RENA litigation committee back in late 2019. At that time, it was reported that no litigation would be pursued, and that's litigation with HCD. Since that time, and at the request of the SCAG RENA subcommittee chair, Peggy Wong, we understand that you reconvened the SCAG RENA litigation committee, and further that a meeting was held on November 2nd, 2020 to continue discussions on the issue. You reported out at the November 4th, 2020 SCAG Executive Administration Committee meeting and the November 5th, 2020 SCAG Regional Council meeting that there was a general consensus of the RENA Litigation Committee that SCAG not pursue any litigation against HCD. At the November 5th, 2020 Regional Council meeting, 2 Regional Council members asked if a special closed session of the SCAG Regional Council could be scheduled to further discuss the recommendation of the RENA Litigation Committee and receive the information that was presented to the RENA Litigation Committee. You responded that you needed to hear from a cross-section of members and be respectful of all viewpoints to see if there are any concerns with this recommendation of the RENA Litigation Committee. It would go to say the City of San Clemente is responding to your outreach. We support the request that the SCAG Regional Council conduct a special closed meeting to discuss the RENA Litigation Committee's recommendation. As a SCAG member jurisdiction, we feel this discussion has direct relevance to our jurisdiction and our RENA allocation and merits the additional consideration and recommendation of the Regional Council. We hope that this special meeting can be convened immediately. And that would be the reason why I have asked for this letter to be agendized tonight.
I'll make a motion that authorize the mayor to send a letter.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Duncan?
I'm going to vote aye, but I would like to just point out that I think, because I think the numbers are too high, but I think the city can and should do more to promote affordable housing for our younger folks, seniors, and lower income families. But yeah, these numbers are not fair or reasonable for San Clemente, so I'm voting aye.
Okay. Councilmember Ferguson?
Aye.
Councilmember James?
Aye.
Councilmember Knoblock?
Aye.
And Mayor Ward?
Aye.
And that carries 5-0. For communication part 2, I don't have any more cards unless the deputy city clerk has received something.
I've not received any additional cards or comments.
Okay. City manager?
So, thank you, Madam Clerk, Mayor, members of the City Council, Eric Sund, interim city manager. I did want to provide a brief update as it relates to the PAWS, which is the, make sure I get the acronym correctly, it is the Pedestrian Audible Warning System that we have in San Clemente. And so as some of your previous public comment cards indicated, the horns are now blowing. And so very briefly, the City of San Clemente initiated the new waiver application in early 2020 with the FRA, Federal Rail Administration. As you may recall, the City of San Clemente was granted a 5-year waiver in April of 2015. And so in early 2020, we began the process of basically reapplying for that waiver. There were inspections that were conducted with the Federal Rail Administration as well as representatives from Metrolink. And as some of your previous public comments indicated, there were some things that needed to be addressed from a repair and maintenance standpoint. All of those items were repaired and addressed and reflective in Metrolink's inspection report that they also concluded. However, it wasn't until November 24th that we received notice from the FRA that they were denying our waiver application and in essence turning the horns back on. So kind of got the news a little bit on the eve of Thanksgiving, and we, the city, are working with the Federal Rail Administration, MetroLink, and Orange County Transit Authority, OCTA, who is also a partner on the rail, to remedy the situation. And I don't have more to update at this point other than we are in the discussions with the federal administration to look at the easiest and quickest way to remedy this situation. We know, the city knows how important this is to the residents that live in the general vicinity of the railway. And for 5 years, they haven't heard horns, and the city did a very diligent process of getting to this point in up to 2015 when we got the waiver. And so I will be providing more updates to the City Council and to the public. There'll be a news advisory going out early tomorrow morning as well to provide some updates. But at this point, that's where we're at, and we'll be working with the FRA looking at the best solution to get back on track, no pun intended. So thank you.
Mr. Sund, I have a question. As you know, I don't know if other council members received these letters since last week about the train noise towards the end of the week, but I had forwarded you a letter from a resident today pertaining to this matter. And could you respond to what the letterhead states to the city about the city failed to timely request renewal of the relief, and then also the waiver request was not jointly filed with the Southern California Regional Rail Authority? Is that something you could answer now? Because that's concerning in the letter.
There's a lot of concerns that the city has with the letter. We're working with the FRA. As I indicated, everything that was needed to be done has been done prior to that letter. And so again, we want to work with all of our stakeholders in this to rectify the situation. And again, I'll have updates when I have more information after talking to the Federal Rail Administration.
Thanks. I'll look forward to that. It's just unfortunate that 7 months went by and we didn't hear anything, and then now they went away, because I did work here at the city, and a big effort went into that amongst the residents and well, multiple agencies, as you know, the city and OCTA and so many others. But anyway, so good. Well, I'll look forward to the update. Thanks for your effort in trying to remedy this.
You're welcome.
City Manager?
Yes, sir.
I think it'd be helpful if you explained the difference between the 5-year waiver and a permit. That's number one. And then I have a question. As it stands right now, are there any safety deficiencies remaining?
So I'll answer your first question, Mayor Pro Tem James. The 5-year waiver is a process afforded to the city because we, the city, chose to go with a different audible system than the standard wayside horns, which was mentioned earlier in your public comments. And that public comment was accurate. If the city had the wayside horns, it would be a louder decibel reading, and that would not require a 5-year waiver. It would be basically, once installed, would be granted permanently for the city of San Clemente. But as I'm sure Councilmember Ferguson is aware of, as well as Mayor Ward, back in 2014, when the city took on this initiative, the residents were vocal in wanting the lower horn system for the city of San Clemente. And so with that want, it put us in the position of having to ask for the waiver every 5 years. Your second question, I have Tom Bonnegat on the line. I will say the short answer, but I will defer to Tom. With regards to, are there any safety issues? No, there are not any safety issues. But Tom, if you would like to elaborate, please.
Well, I'll just say I'll confirm that there aren't any safety issues, and any corrections that were required to be made as a result of the FRA inspection, many were made the day of when the inspectors were there, and they verified those before they left the site. And they were mostly in the range of adjustments to volume. There were some minor follow-ups which were immediately dealt with, and we continue to routinely inspect the system.
Thank you. And then my last question, and it was just brought up by Councilmember Ferguson. Do I have this right? The Southern California Rail Commission. What involvement do they have in this endeavor?
Tom, do you want to address that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem James. So the Southern California Regional Rail Authority is the fancy way of calling Metrolink Metrolink. Okay. That's the Joint Powers Authority. That's Metrolink, basically. So they are an operator, and OCTA in our area owns the actual right-of-way. So OCTA owns it, SCRA/Metrolink is an operator and maintainer of the right-of-way.
Just like Amtrak in Burlington Northern.
Similarly, except Metrolink takes on the added duty of providing maintenance of the track and the signaling equipment, but they also operate the commuter rail service Metrolink.
And I promise this is the last question I'll ask. Decibel levels for the standard wayside horn versus decibel levels for the actual train. What's the difference? Do we know the difference?
Yeah, a train horn sounds at about 112 decibels, and without going into really boring minutia, the federal train horn rule requires that at the crossing a certain sound level be met. And so that's, in our case, 80 decibels 10 feet away from those bollards. But you know, sound is exponential as it travels distance-wise, and so you have to come out at a higher level. Therefore, the train horn is at 112, and the wayside horn is something like 92, louder than our current system.
So now I'm going to break my promise and ask one more question. It's not a question; it's something I know, but I think the public needs to know this. At North Beach, we actually have a permit. We don't have a waiver. Is that correct, Mr. Vonnegut?
Pretty close. We have at North Beach an actual quiet zone, and again, this goes back to some very precise federal terminology. What that means is at North Beach, with the vehicle crossing that serves the Capistrano Shores mobile home community and the pedestrian crossing that serves North Beach, those two crossings are in an actual designated quiet zone. They should not be affected by this current action. We could not do that on the other crossings. There's a whole history on why that is. We did try and do that, but it was not possible. Therefore, the city had to pursue and did get a waiver of certain quiet zone rules, train horn rules, to be able to operate a modified, quieter horn system.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I would just comment that I know staff realizes how important this is to our residents and the city council, and I know you're working on it. So we worked many years for this waiver, and I know you inspect it regularly, so I'm hoping that we get a quick resolution. So I think that's all the comments. City Manager?
Madam Mayor, a comment? Quick question?
That's what I was saying. Is the City Manager done with his comments?
I have no further comments unless there are any questions.
Okay. Does the City Attorney have any comments?
Oh, sorry. Councilmember Knoblock had a question of Eric on the City Manager's comments, Mayor.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Councilmember Knoblock.
Quick question. The termination of the permit seemed to happen rather quickly. Are the recent pedestrian fatalities that have occurred on the track, is that part of their motivation? Do you know? I'm just curious. And secondly, your efforts to work with the federal government, is Congressman Levin's office involved in your team effort?
Great questions, Councilmember Knoblock. So the first question being with regards to, well, the second question, Levin. Once we have had more briefings with the FRA and we know the path that we can go, we do plan on reaching out to Congressman Levin's office. I've already reached out to his local district director to provide an update on this issue. We haven't connected yet, but I will be making them aware of it, and then potentially any assistance or support that may be needed, we will definitely reach out to Congressman Levin for his support on that matter. And I apologize, your first question was, sir?
Or just the recent pedestrian fatalities that we've had on the train. Was that part of the motivation for yanking this thing so quickly?
I will say that in the last 3 to 5 years, the Federal Rail Administration has become more focused on rail safety as being a priority. What I did learn is that the Southern California region of train crossings has some of the highest fatality numbers in the nation with regards to that. Now, I know that a lot of the fatalities that occur don't occur necessarily near the crossings per se, but nevertheless, rail safety is very, very much in the front of the FRA's perspective as they're reviewing this matter. So yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say that hopefully it doesn't come to this, but if we do need to contact Congressman Levin, I'd be happy to reach out on behalf of the council if we get to that point. Hopefully it gets resolved before that.
I agree, but thank you, Councilmember Duncan.
Mayor Ward, I believe you're on mute.
I am. City Attorney, you didn't have any additional comments?
I have one quick thing, Mayor and Council. I think you were watching the news last week about a pretty significant decision of the United States Supreme Court regarding local emergency health regulations. And I'll remind the Council and the community that when the San Clemente City Council wrote its emergency regulations for dealing with COVID-19, providing opportunities for outdoor uses, parking variances, use of city property, it had the foresight to include reciprocal opportunities or similar opportunities for religious uses. So in other words, if a school could hold classes outdoors, then a church could hold services outdoors on the very same exact terms. Well, the state of New York today is wishing that it did that in its emergency COVID regulations, because on that basis, because they did not provide equal opportunities for religious and secular uses, the court held them Wednesday night at 11:30 unconstitutional and violative of the First Amendment. So that's some pretty significant news. The state of California will be before the court again on that very same basis. It's not, we're writing you a memo that you'll get tomorrow. It's not clear that that's about the validity of the regulations. New York's were much more stringent than California's. It's later in the COVID crisis. California's were upheld in June, and now it's not June anymore. Or maybe just the new Supreme Court has a new view of religious exercise. But in any event, we're watching that. We'll get you a brief on that tomorrow that you can feel free to share and respond to. But for right now, what this city did midsummer had some real foresight in it, because what you've done has been completely neutral and with equal opportunity to religious uses. That's it.
Okay, so now, council members, is there any council member that has an item they would like to discuss under council comments?
I do, Mayor Ward.
Go ahead.
Thank you. You have a couple of items. One of them is for the interim city manager. I've heard from a couple of people who've written you and asked for you to provide an cost of the entire censure matter that was held on November 23rd. And if you can put that together, that would be great. I've personally heard from a couple of people verbally, but I guess a couple of people have written you in via email. So have you received those, Mr. Sund?
Councilmember Ferguson, yes, I have, and I had an opportunity to respond tonight and let them know that their request has been submitted into our public records process.
Oh, so it's nothing you have at the top of your head to respond to?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Very good. And along those lines, I've emailed, since I was the subject of this council's, the prior city council censure circus on November 23rd, I emailed the city clerk and the city attorney to seek any communications dating back to last year that pertain to this censure effort, and see how long this has been going on to plot against me for this censure. So I did receive a response from a colleague of Mr. Smith's today saying that she believed that emails, correspondence might be privileged, which doesn't make any sense. They're emails and they're public documents, and that a third party may need to be brought in to determine that, which is really nonsense, because the city attorney even stated he had no dog in this fight and didn't represent any individual council members. So anyhow, that said, it's just about transparency and getting to the bottom of that, and my right to know and the people's right to know why that took place and how long that was going on, because it was at the taxpayer's expense, and I'm sure it's going to be quite expensive considering the city council had 2 attorneys working for them at the taxpayer's expense. So anyhow, but the city can't hide documents, and I'd just like to make a request and see if I can get a second in the event those documents are ruled privileged, to be able to waive privilege on emails so I can see what was said about me in the censure. So do I have a second to place something on the agenda?
Can I ask a question of legal counsel? Should this be discussed now under council member comments to ask the city council to waive privilege, or does it need to be agendized?
Oh, I see.
Point of order. Point of order.
What I'm doing, I'm asking.
Madam Mayor, point of order. There was a motion made, and I seconded it.
Okay, I did not hear your second, so
Okay.
that's noted. So let me ask the city attorney the question that I just asked.
I understood the motion was to have a report brought back to the council, since it could not be discussed tonight. It's not on your agenda. But Councilmember Ferguson can clarify that.
That's absolutely correct.
So, Scott, that would be a closed session report?
We'll figure out how. I'll need to advise you confidentially on part of that, but we'll figure out how we'll do that. I anticipate do that in writing, and then the council would have that that information and that advice, and could respond in a public setting at that point.
Okay, so Councilmember Ferguson, you're amending your motion to just a request asking for that to be sent to council under the advice that the city attorney just gave us.
I'm asking for it to be agendized for consideration at a meeting, and I received a second by Councilmember Knoblock to do that.
So for council policy, that is just agendizing the item, and so you're asking for that on December 15th?
For that to come to council, yeah, for consideration to waive privilege on the communications, because BBK believes they need to have a third party brought in to determine that. Excuse me.
Okay, we can't talk about that tonight. We can agendize it for a discussion on December 15th.
That's exactly what I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you. So that only takes 2 votes, so that's agendized for a discussion only. Is there any other comments, Mr. Knobloch?
Not on that item, but is this on to the next item?
Yes,
Okay.
whatever you have.
Two quick items. Number one, the letter that we all received from Brad Malamud is clear that that's a precursor to litigation, and I think to avoid the cost to the city, I would recommend that we agendize the letter and consider any and all appropriate actions to take in response to Mr. Malamud's letter. I think he identifies a number of very accurate deficiencies in that hearing that I think should be specifically discussed, that didn't get a lot of table time during the censure hearing. So I would move that we agenda, and I don't know if this might tie into Laura's prior motion or may not, but specifically I'd like that Malamud letter for council consideration, whether that occurs in public meeting or closed, but I think we should address it.
Okay, so Mr. Smith, I think that anything that we think is a precursor to litigation, we discussed that in closed session.
Yeah, there has been an explicit threat of litigation, so I would suggest the same thing, that you reserve space to discuss it publicly, but that we would also have time scheduled up as you properly on that.
So in closed session?
Well, it's up to the council about whether it's closed or open session, but I would certainly want to start out with a closed session briefing and that risk assessment, and then have you act publicly if two of you want to do that.
Okay.
I certainly do.
So again, you're just agendizing a discussion for December 15th. And you'll have to bring up the discussion at that time. But what Mr. Smith said is we can have a precursor discussion in closed session because it litigation threat.
My motion would include a consideration of the threat of litigation and the ability of the council to take whatever appropriate action the council thinks is necessary to address those concerns.
I think that would be discussed in closed session.
Right.
Okay.
But I just want the scope of the discussion to be clear.
For you to get any staff report and have them do that, you would need a vote of 3 council members to do that. I personally will not be voting for that to be Mr. Malamuth's letter to be discussed in public session.
Is that correct? Could you please cite that portion of the policy, 1201-11? Is it a part of the policy to have 3 votes for an agenda report? What section? Could you please cite that for me? I'll grab it. I'll grab my policy over here.
So, council, that is something that the council does. If somebody, it takes only 2 to agendize an item for discussion, but it takes 3 to actually put staff time into that. And I think that's something that I wouldn't personally be for. After, we will make that decision in closed session when we discuss.
Mm-hmm. What section is that, Councilmember Ward? What section is that?
I don't know the section number. It's been council policy, and that's how we've been agendizing items since you've been on council for the last 2 years.
Nope, that hasn't been the case.
Well, I would agree that it is, and you can agendize it for a discussion, but you cannot discuss it tonight. We're already going too far afield on it.
We can't just make it up. It's got to be in the policy, and that's not how it's been since I've been on council. We've had one council member recommend an item, another second it, and they've been on the agenda. I know, I've been here for 2 years.
Only to be on the agenda, but not for a staff report. It takes a majority of council.
It has.
Mayor Ward, my request, my motion didn't anticipate a staff report.
All right, I was just trying to be clear because we have new members, so I just wanted to be clear so that you knew that. So, okay, so it only takes 2 to agendize something, but the extent of it, you'll have to discuss, you'll have to bring that up at the December 15th meeting.
Well, point of order, Mayor Ward, may I? You're making it up. It's not in the policy, okay? So we follow policies, but I guess they don't apply to everyone. So that's a problem. We got to start following the policies we have, but it's not in the policy unless you can cite it and I'm missing it, but I don't see it.
It's my understanding that Councilmember Knoblock's motion is to only put it on the agenda at this time.
Right, because we cannot discuss it tonight. It's not agendized, and that's what I'm trying to stop the discussion of.
That's fine. I'm just pointing out that we don't have a section of the policy that stipulates that for agenda reports being written 3 votes.
The council, I know, has discussed it many times. In
not policy.
All right, so.
If there's a second on my motion, I'll call for the question.
I'll second.
Actually, we don't need a motion to agendize something. This is, it just takes 2.
Thanks, Councilman.
Okay. So, Councilmember Duncan, do you have any comments that you'd like to make?
No, not right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem James. I have to get this. Okay.
The only comment I have is I did get a call today from Chair Gary Walsh of the Homeless Subcommittee indicating that he was he was inquiring on why we have held off the homeless work plan, and he said that there's a lot of work to be done. They need to get to work on it. And quite honestly, Mayor Ward, I forget why you wanted it delayed till February, and so I'm asking you that question at this time.
I believe Councilmember James, or I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem James, we put it off till January, not February. I think that was your request, and I had promised that I would reach out to those members and talk to them a little bit about the work plan, because I had requested it to be continued, because I couldn't do that. So I believe it's January though, and I do understand, and thank you for reminding me, and I will make that appointment with them.
Thank you. That's all I have.
I have, Madam Mayor, I had two items. The second one is a brief one. I wanted to ask to agendize a request by the City Council to Lieutenant Manhart in the Sheriff's Department, for Lieutenant Manhart to notify the City Council on a regular basis if there's a deputy that performs extraordinary acts of public service or personal bravery that needs public recognition to receive council commendation. So if we could agendize that, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, so agendize the discussion of that. Okay.
Thank you.
That's great. I think that would go along well that in that discussion we talk about just communication in general that we would like to see.
Yeah, and I don't need a staff report on that, Mayor Ward. I just think if the council would just consider making that request of Lieutenant Manhart, we can consider if he brings anything back to us on an item-by-item basis for approval or not.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
That's on the agenda. I don't have anything to add. So,
Mayor Ward, I am so sorry. I did have one other item, and that is I propose that we offer to the Deputies Association and to the command staff separately of the Sheriff's Department a briefing by our pollster, Mr. Probinski, on their section, on the law enforcement section of the survey that's been released. I proposed that to the association. They were very receptive. I think it would create some goodwill to do that, so they would understand the basis of the questions and get some input from the pollster on what those numbers mean. I have discussed this with the city manager son, interim city manager son, and he's agreeable to it.
okay, so Mr. Smith, I believe this still has to be agendized for a discussion.
Yeah, I think that would be great. It might be something that, yeah, if you have to, then bring it.
That's what my motion is, to agendize it. Thank you.
I'll second that.
Go ahead, Mr. Knoblock, a second.
I seconded Mr. Pro Tem James's motion.
Yes, I agree, Madam Clerk. So I think that is all for council comments. I don't have any.
The next item on the agenda is the second reading of Ordinance 1706 relating to special events and amplified sound permits.
Is there any council discussion on this item?
Will this be a public hearing, Mayor Ward?
This is a second reading. There already was a public hearing on this.
So you won't be having one at this time?
No, let me ask, since I haven't done this for a while, let me ask, we can have a discussion on the second reading, or do we just do general concerns or comments and
you can have a discussion? You can have a discussion. The second reading can be a first reading. It's completely up to the council. I don't know if Councilmember Knoblock was referring to whether there are public comments. So at some point in your discussion on this, we could ask John about that, Mayor.
Well, it wasn't about public comments, but it was rather whether the second reading needed a public hearing. I don't think so, but
not to this percent.
Okay. Is this the appropriate time to comment on the ordinance?
If you have some concerns, yes.
Okay, I do have some concerns. ordinance, to me, is an infringement of our constitutional rights. Three of us yesterday, including the city clerk and treasurer, took oaths to uphold the Constitution of the nation and of our state. And one of the primary constitutional rights that we enjoy is the freedom of assembly and the freedom of speech. And while I know this it touches on some and not others, I think the freedom of assembly is important. I think the cost of liberty is expensive. And when we have public gatherings, there is a cost, but I think there's no cost that's too high to preserve our liberties. So my feeling on this is that this matter should be tabled because I believe it unreasonably interferes with our freedoms.
Okay, so Councilmember Duncan, do you have any comments on this or concerns?
Well, yeah, first of all, let me say, and I've spoken about this with the city attorney, I don't want to do anything that would cause the resolution to outright fail. I do have some concerns, maybe not as significant as Councilmember Knoblock's, but one is on the definition of the special use permit, section B. Based on my experience in litigating these types of cases, the language is a little vague, a little subjective how it defines the need for a special permit. And specifically, I mean a use that is inconsistent with permanent or ordinary use of that public space. That's a pretty vague term, and I'm concerned that when you have that kind of vague and subjective language, it's a recipe for challenges to perhaps the facial challenge, as Councilman Knoblock's talking about, but also a challenge to how it's applied. And so that makes me a little uncomfortable. I don't know if that's something we can address without having, of course, the whole resolution go away. To a lesser extent, and that's section 12.34.020 is the definitions, and you go to the definition section B there. And
Can you cite what page you're on?
Let's see here.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think it's page 6. At the bottom of page 5, it starts with the definition of special event, and then B, it gets into the language that I was just quoting about any use of a property that is inconsistent with the permanent or ordinary use. Those are, I don't think, defined anywhere. So that might be something we want to look at so that it's not open to challenge. If we want to have a resolution like this, I think it needs to be clear.
Okay, so I would ask our city attorney what would be the best option on this. I know that the city council took this up and we had staff and we had a long discussion on this that they're not going to be privy to. So would it be better to bring this back for a discussion, or is it something that we can't modify it tonight?
We'd have to have a new first reading, which is not a problem. This opus has been, in process for a long time because there's a real acute need, for some of the reasons that Councilmember Knoblock mentioned, to look at what you have on the books now, because it's clearly unacceptable from a First Amendment standpoint. So we have to do something, I think. But yeah, there was staff from code enforcement and from Beaches, Parks, and Recreation that was instrumental in bringing this back. And I would appreciate the chance to caucus with them. I think Councilmember Duncan's question is well taken. If in looking at that definition, you're not clear as council members on what that means, even though we might be, or code enforcement staff might feel confident about it, we need to look at that and tweak it, and perhaps in that narrow regard, give you a better definition. Whether it's consistent with explicit zoning rules, or you can't have dinner in parking lots, or whatever we're getting at, that could be elaborated more. In terms of Councilmember Knoblock's concern, we had presented at your last meeting a sliding scale of how much expressive activity, if any, ought to be subject to permitting requirements. If any expressive activity is subject to permitting requirements. As he points out, that's subject to strict scrutiny under First Amendment review, and vulnerable just at that level. So I guess what I'm taking a long time to say is I would appreciate the chance with Adam Atamian and Samantha Wiley to look again at this component of the definition of special events, to see if we could put a finer point on what it means to do something inconsistent with the usual use. And then, so you can see it again, that would be a first reading with whatever solution you come up with, or they come up with. At that point, we could give you again the full range of options about how this might relate to expressive activity. The council may decide that all of it must, and that's fine with me. I think this ordinance meets strict scrutiny, but you may conclude that some activity on sidewalks, for example, traditional public forums, ought to be completely exempt. So we can bring that menu back to you with, I would like to look again at this definition and just present that again as first reading. I'm going on, but another part of this that the prior council had a lot of questions about when it was first read is how the city's fee resolution will apply to this new permitting regime. I'd suggest, and we've done this before, that while we're looking at the ordinance to refine it, we go ahead and accelerate the fee resolution that will necessarily follow it, so you can see what that's going to mean, because there were questions there about how much is subject to a fixed fee, how much is pay-go, what about variables that the organizers don't anticipate. And I'd like to bring that back to you maybe as a companion piece, because the council, when it considered this a first reading, had some very good questions that I assume might still be in your minds as you consider the ordinance. So we'd talk to Samantha and Adam and then bring this back, as I suggested, with some modifications, maybe some toggle language again, and then also with the fee resolution, so you can see exactly what staff has in mind about how they would administer that once this hit the books, if the council passes it.
Scott, Scott, I understand that this ordinance is identical to the Lake Forest's ordinance, which I think BBK also represents. I understand there's been no enforcement at all in Lake Forest or other cities. Are you aware of any cities that have taken enforcement action based on an ordinance of this kind?
Well, this is actually not that section, because I will say the section that was pointed out is unique to San Clemente, and so I want to be really straight about that, Councilman. But the rest of this is based on an IMLA model, the International Municipal Lawyers Association. So Lake Forest has a variation on it. A lot of other cities do. Lake Forest has found occasion to enforce it. They will, I don't know what their threshold is for calling a gathering a special event, but I remember when they called the Obama campaign and told them that they needed to check in with regard to some of the cost sharing that's prescribed here. So I don't know that they've gone out and cited people, but they do have this, but a lot of cities do, because it's based on that IMLA model. Okay, so I think from the concern from Councilmember Duncan and Councilmember Knoblock that we should bring this back with the fee resolution so that we can see what the consequences are. I think that will help us in our minds know, what we're proposing here. This has been, I will tell council, this has been a long time that we've been reviewing this. I think it goes back even longer than a year. So, but I would make that, I heard the concern, so I would make that motion.
Excuse me, Mayor Ward, I've been trying to speak.
Okay, so I made a motion. Does anyone want to second it before we have discussion on that?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Duncan. Go ahead,
Great. Yes, the city attorney, this is a question for you. Of course, I voted no on this, the first reading. I do believe it infringes upon people's First Amendment rights for free speech and freedom to assemble in public spaces. And you had mentioned, city attorney, you need to talk to staff. But why would you talk to staff about this? I mean, this is at the council level, right? We set policy. You bring us the laws, right? We decide. And why does staff need to be involved, number one? And number two, Councilmember Knoblock made a really good point about enforcement. That didn't come up when we read this the first time. So if this passes, say in the future, because obviously it looks like we're leaning towards having this be tabled and come back, and I don't like it, and I get 51 people, right? We go march against this ordinance. Who's going to enforce it? Am I going to be arrested? Because I know in April the city council, not me, but the majority did, passed an ordinance that public property that's marked or signage saying closed can now private trespassing laws do apply. But what happens to me if I do that without a permit? I don't go through the application process. I don't get the $1 million insurance. I don't get the additional fire and ambulance permits. What will happen to me?
In chronological order, Councilmember Ferguson, we involve staff in this because you're making policy, and I'm not qualified to help you do that. You ask them to liaison with community organizations and get their feel for this sort of regulations and permitting, and I think that it's much better if we're writing something for you to get their input because they're the professionals and they're in the field on day to day. This ordinance drops into your municipal code, and so the default penalties for violations of the municipal code apply. So it would be citable as a misdemeanor, but most likely subject to an administrative citation first and an infraction after that.
Thank you. But who would manage the enforcement? Are you looking at deputies to do this, code enforcement, other staff?
The first step under your processes is to issue an administrative citation and then have them come in and talk about it at that level.
Okay, so code enforcement, code compliance. And have you talked to the Sheriff's Department about enforcement? Has anyone on staff or yourself?
No, I don't. That's not. I'm thinking of larger events, gatherings, protest encampments that I've seen occur in Portland, Wall Street, when that was occupied by protesters for several seasons, and actually, when we've talked about disturbances relating to noise or large gatherings or preemptive use of public spaces by one group at the cost of the citizens at large, the sheriff, in my experience here in San Clemente, has been eager to have some means to help regulate that.
I guess I was just wondering if you asked them if they would actually enforce this, or we're just looking to code compliance.
No. No.
Is it just strictly code compliance? I just want to know about the enforcement because we didn't discuss that the first reading, so that's important to me now that Councilmember Knoblock brought that up.
No, we can talk to them. I'd suggest we involve them in this, but I assume that you'd have available all the tools, including citations by the sheriff, if it came to that, but it'd be unlikely that it would.
Okay, well that'd be great if we did get their input. We consider tabling this to get their input on this. It's important they weigh in, just like all the nonprofits and other entities that have special events. I know we had put this off previously because I did want all of those people that were interested in weighing in, weigh in, and Mr. Sun did arrange that with a Zoom call, so we did get their input from those groups that are, as he called, frequent flyers that have special events every year. So I'd like to see us do that with the Sheriff's Department. Thank you.
So, Mr. Smith, I made a motion to bring this back. So is that a motion for continuance? To bring it back with those changes that you can tweak, and also the fee resolution matter, so that we could do that together?
This is a hearing. It's not an amendment to your zoning title, so I don't think you need to continue it to a date certain. I'd like to consult with Adam and Samantha about their workload, and because we'll need some help on them with the fee component especially, and then we'll report back to you through your agenda planning guide.
Okay, so is that just a motion to continue to a date uncertain?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I have a couple questions.
Go ahead.
So I guess it's comments more than anything else. Going back to the fee schedule, we have had
a number of events that were not permitted in the city. I would defer to the interim city manager, but I believe those events have cost us about $360,000. I hope no one's. I take Council Member Duncan's suggestion of some tweaking. I take that very serious, and he has experience in this area. So what Mr. Duncan has to say carries a lot of weight for me on this matter. But you know, my thing is, if we don't have a permit ordinance, a special event permit ordinance, how do we close streets for Fiesta or for the car show? You know, we're flying by the seat of our pants without any written ordinance. So that's my only comment. I hope we can tweak this, and I hope we can get a majority of council to go with a new and improved version of this. And I thank Chris Duncan for bringing those tweaks to us. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we need a second on that.
Second.
So, Madam Clerk, there's a motion and a second to continue this item to a date uncertain.
Okay. Councilmember Duncan?
Aye.
Councilmember Knoblock?
Aye.
Councilmember Ferguson?
Aye.
Councilmember James?
Aye.
And Mayor Ward?
Aye.
And the next item on the agenda is to recess to closed session, and I would just like to check with the city attorney. Does council need to reconvene in open session? I'm trying to figure out whether to keep the Zoom going.
Only if there's a report to be made, and I can commit that we won't need to do that if the council's willing to make that same commitment.
So we could just announce now that the next meeting would be on December 15th.
Yes.
Closed session at 5 and the regular business meeting at 6.
Do we need a motion on that?
No, I don't think so. I believe you do need a motion, though, to recess to closed session to discuss the items on the agenda.
Motion to recess to closed session.
For second?
Second.
On the motion, a question regarding the motion. If there is any decision that needs to be reported out, can we do that at the following council meeting, or is that appropriate? Because we're telling the citizens that we're logging off. So.
Yeah, no, it's we can take no action if we adjourn from here.
If there was action, do we need to report it tonight, or is it okay to do it later if that's the case?
So if people rely on us saying we're not going to take action, then so as long as you're within that.
I don't know what we're going to be discussing, but I assume we won't. But I just was wondering if we did, would it be appropriate at the following meeting to report out?
Tonight, so we can adjourn straight from closed session because we're just giving a report, not seeking direction.
Okay, so I heard a motion by Mayor Pro Tem James.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Duncan.
Okay. Councilmember Duncan?
Aye.
Councilmember Knoblock?
Aye.
Councilmember James?
Aye.
Councilmember Ferguson?
Aye.
And Mayor Ward?
Aye.
Carries 5-0.
Okay, so we're logging off Zoom, is that correct? Okay.
Yes.